I don't know, Frank, you want to get started?
Yes, absolutely. It's 10 after, so let's
All right.
let's have Chad present um and go from there.
Okay.
All right. I'd say again, we're at a point where we're just providing you information. I don't think there's anything we necessarily have to have a vote on, but we're looking for feedback both tonight, and then you can also email, over the course of the next several weeks as we prepare for the public meeting coming up next month. So I'll share my screen. All right. All right, can everybody see that all right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
So except for Jim. I'll run through the plan again, planimetrically. Not a ton has changed from moving things around. We've been fine tuning things, but I'll just kind of go through a little bit of what we've done, um, so that you can at least be up to speed. Obviously, we've rendered the two plans that hadn't been rendered before, so this is obviously Fitch. I'll start over here. You can just, as we zoom in, you can see everything a little bit better, see all the utilities. We've got the bullpens to either side, the batting cage out here, the dugouts, the bleachers, the press box. At this point, we're putting a scoreboard over here. The different pathways, similar configuration that we've always talked about. That's a bathroom up here that serves kind of everything on the top portion of the hill, and then the walks down either way. Um, we've added a little bit of detail around in here. I'll say most notably the changes we've done relate to the field sports around the track. So per Mark and Rich, we looked at putting the long jump down here, down the western edge, just off the outside of the track, um, which we can fit. It pushes some things out a little bit. One of the things we're going to have to talk about with Groton Utilities, we need to run that new water line as we replace the water line that comes up through here diagonally. The new water main, as it comes through here, they're looking to have a 20-foot level area to be able to potentially service that in the future if they need to. The hope would be that we could maybe run that water line just on the side of this so that, they don't have to tear up the track or anything, but also we don't have to put 20 more feet out here of flat area because we're really pushing the limits here of grading down to the next field and back down before we get off to the steep slope. Um, so we can't really make this any steeper without getting into some significant retaining walls. And so I would say for now we're showing this. If for some reason Groton Utilities pushes back and doesn't want to have their 20 feet be somewhat inclusive of this area, we'll have to look for a potentially different location for that. Along those lines, the storage building, we had it down here at one point. We've moved it up here and made it kind of be able to open right up onto the track. So storage of everything is a little bit simpler, and closer to access. The pole vaults we're showing down here. This was kind of the requested location. We're working this out a little bit. As I zoom in here, you can see that in this configuration, the pads basically come right out to the running lane. So we're checking some different standards. Ideally, what we'd like to do is push these a little bit closer to the edge of the turf, have this pad overlap onto the outside of the turf a little bit, and give us a little more breathing room for everybody running around at the same time full vault might be happening. Showing all of the different configurations of field surfaces in here, as well as the potential logo in there, high jump down here. I'll note that down here we do have the pad extended out onto the field in order for that high jump to work with this configuration of the track. Otherwise, throwing sports kind of out here over the practice field like they are currently. Had to move some things slightly because of the track configuration. but they still all fit. And we're at the moment showing the scoreboard over here. Could potentially be a little closer in if we wanted to, but that's at the moment where we're showing it. So this field we're showing every single line, so all field sports, field hockey, men's and women's, lacrosse, soccer, football, all those lines are shown. Whether we want to have them all painted or not is up for discussion. This one, the practice field, we're showing basically everything but football there. And then down here, we're showing the football on the grass field. Of course, it could be for other sports if need be as well. The other updates I'll just bring you up to speed. We are in the middle of the geotech work. We've got they owe us 2 days of drilling out there. One day they broke the drill rig, and we came back and have completed the rest of that day, and we're still getting the second day done. What we've discovered is that this whole hillside consists of a whole lot of rubble and fill that was pushed down the hill, probably during the construction of the schools and everything else around it. So that just makes things a little bit more difficult. It's not just clean fill that we can just kind of cut and fill on top of. We'll have to be probably scooping up a lot of that rock and putting it through crushing machines and then hopefully reusing it as gravel. But it's a little bit more intensive than just simply cutting and filling the hill. And I'll note that there is this existing kind of level area that runs right down here at the bottom, and that's where we're kind of showing the end of our cut fill balance, like we've talked about. That connects over to Grosso Tech, and it connects down to the pump house, which is kind of hidden under here at the moment under the labels. Otherwise, we're just showing some of the existing conditions as well, so you can kind of see how everything integrates together. Jumping over to Claude Chester. Planimetrically, this is exactly as you've seen. We've done some minor tweaks. Last time we talked about the reshaping of the central pavilion so that it can kind of work for anybody hanging out underneath of it, watching something on the field, but also could work for a potential, town green kind of use on this practice leftover space. We have added the lines for, in this case, soccer, girls lacrosse, and football, and on this one, soccer, boys lacrosse, and football as well. We're not necessarily saying that it has to be striped for those all the time, and most of the time they're not. But we wanted to at least show the football field, and this is exactly what they have over at Quantic Plains. It goes up to 40 and then back down again from a size perspective, and just how all of that fits together, and the practice field as well.
So Chad, those two fields at Claude Chester are not high school regulation.
No, they can be used for high school, everything up through high school. Well, all high school sports, soccer. So that is a regulation size.
Oh, it is
soccer field.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of tweaks we made. Like the soccer field slightly shorter than a soccer has a range of what the size could be, right? So what we're showing at the high school is the fullest full size, the typical normal. These are slightly shorter. And then I'll also note the girls lacrosse is slightly shorter because it likes to be a little bit longer and a little bit wider than a soccer field. So we've reduced it down. It's within its allowable size limit.
Perfect.
So it all fits, but we've just tried to adjust it. And we didn't think it was worth continuing to shrink the parking lot, push everything down, scrunch to space that could be the future aquatic center and things like that, for basically about 5 feet on either end of the field.
But it's within the range that they could use it. Let's say a U17 Southeast tournament.
Absolutely.
Soccer tournament. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. These fields are the same size as the fields over here.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay.
So all works. We have noted here that these are natural turf fields, and that's something we can talk about as we go through kind of the field assessment and the needs assessment. We think we can meet the current demand with both of those as natural turf and not necessarily having to be synthetic turf. Obviously, if it's the, task force prerogative to want to have one or either or both of those synthetic, we can certainly talk about it. But at the moment, I think we can accomplish what we need to, having both of those as natural grass. So that's how we've noted it. It's something we should definitely talk about. Make sure you guys all agree with that.
Chad, are
And
we
then,
are we proposing? I'm sorry, are we proposing lights on these fields as well, or is that going to be something we talk about as well?
so again, something great, quick question, something to discuss. At the moment, the numbers we've used for the fields as far as the use, we don't include them with lights. We certainly can add them if we'd like to do that, but at the moment we're showing them without it, just knowing that the neighbors could potentially have some objections because of how close the houses are. But we can
Okay, thank you.
certainly add them. It's not, I mean, it's $700,000 probably a field to light them, but we're getting really close to meeting the demand without it at the moment. So,
Understood.
but I
Thank
would say
you.
that's up for discussion as well. And mostly, I wouldn't say it's probably from a use perspective. It's not from an overall use perspective. It'd be more from the realities of use, right? Like knowing right now, looking outside, it's getting dark at 7:20. At this time of year, you probably have another half hour, maybe. We know that in 2 months towards the end of soccer season, it's going to be dark at 5:30, right? So you lose quite a bit of playing time. And then Sutton Park. So again, configuration wise, this is what we've shown the last meeting. Now just a rendered plan, so it's a little bit easier for everyone to understand. See the ADA parking, the parent turnaround space, the pathway that comes through, the multi-use path that comes around the back. Again, bullpens, batting cages associated with both fields, the dugouts, the bleachers, the press boxes, the bathroom, and the walking paths. And then in this case, at least, we are showing kind of everything from the edge of disturbance over towards the river as kind of a riparian restoration zone. So we'll put back in natives, plants and shrubs, and not turn that into a lawn, but allow that to kind of be a riparian zone. So any questions on any of those three sites? All right. Again, you've seen all of this for the most part, so nothing drastic.
I don't have any questions. I mean, because this is what we talked about, which is great. But in our estimating and when you're doing it's, as we've talked about before, I think that the big thing is the ADA compliance part issues, the facilities, the restrooms, so that it's all usable by the people, so that I think that's one of our biggest issues is they go to these fields and they're just a field, if you would.
Yep.
And I know that's part of it, but I think that as we speak about it to the public, I think that's a huge selling point to folks. And I know we haven't talked about it as a group yet, but part of my concern for the public is the usage of the fields by the general public when they're not being utilized by activities like a team, a sport, a high school team, or whatever. And that's something that we have now that I continue, which just bothers me to no end, to see that middle school field, just turf field, just sitting there every day and I know there's other issues. I understand that part of it, but my personal thought is to try to do the best that we can to ensure that these fields are of use to the general public when they can use them. Having that second field at the high school is a classic, Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, bunch of people getting together to do something, whether on a turf field, like that kind of thing. I don't know, that may be out of our scope of what we're doing, but I think it's a big selling point to be able to sell that to the people that you can use these fields. It's not just the high school team. It's not a team that we've that signed up. You know, it's Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Everyone knows we're not using that field. We can go down there and kick it around for a couple hours, or we can go practice lacrosse, or the number of sports that we can use it. So I know that the facilities are there. So I think that we need to start working that may be out of our jurisdiction, if you would. And I know there's a lot of things that go into all that stuff. And I know Mark and Rich are much more blessed on that kind of stuff, but we got to make it usable for the folks in general. Jim, go ahead, Jim.
I agree with you. I think the piece there that we have to work through, and if we're going to talk about it, is around transparency of scheduling. Right. I think that's the challenge right now, is knowing when the fields have been reserved and when the fields are free for public utilization. And I think that's something that we need to talk about. Like, how do you make it transparent that that field is open at 9 till 11 or whatever the time might be. And I think that's something that we would want to think about in terms of, like, how do you show the public that this is open for anyone to use versus the high school has scheduled it for a game or for a practice.
Right. I totally agree. In my mind, again, it's out of what we're doing. I got it. But that next level is like, I feel like we want a field czar that works with both Mark in the high school, works with Mark Romano in the high school, works with Mark Berry in the Groton town, to be able to, so people can understand there's a place to go. I don't know, we all have worked with big fat spreadsheets along the way. Something out there in the world that, as Jim said, that you can go look at and say, hey, geez, nobody's using the field on Sundays, in the morning. So let's go out there and kick it or play or do what we want to do at one of the fields. But I know that's another. Go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
What I would say to that is, being on the side of someone who's scheduled practices and things like that, from that perspective, I think the other challenge we have in Groton that we need to work through, to your point exactly, is it's working through Parks and Rec for Groton. It's working through the middle school, working through the high school, working through an elementary school, where you have multiple different parties that you need to get permission to work through those fields. And so it's not as cohesive for someone who's looking to schedule or understand time. There's a lot of different places that you have to look. So something for us to consider in terms of ease of scheduling, ease of use, things of that nature. So from someone who has done this, and many of us on this committee have done for multiple years, I think that's one of the challenges that we see, is that there's multiple places that you have to go to get that permission and understand where you're going to utilize those fields. But would welcome others on the committee's thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to, so when, I don't know, when I was kind of scheduling some things, I spoke with Stonington, and their Parks and Rec director and their athletic director at the high school, basically kind of like what you guys said, share a document, that they can both work off of, and I guess I guess you could say, and work together on, which I'm sure Mark and I could do that with no problem. I think the biggest challenge, like you both have said, is how do you get that information out to the public? To say, hey, at what do we say, 9 o'clock, the field's open. I don't know if they would still have to go through somebody to reserve it, or if it's just open play. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that, as it's been said, I think that is a challenge, how to get that information out there, because like we all know, that's going to be probably half the sell of this whole project is the community. them being able to utilize the facilities. Not just by, reserving or booking or whatever it may be, but just have that open time where, father and son can go out on an open field with, and just pass the ball or whatever they want to do, without any kind of, you don't necessarily need a permit to do it. What that looks like, I'm not really sure. Obviously, I think some of the challenges of it is that, the community needs to respect what the rules and regulations are of the facilities. I think that's kind of probably going to be the biggest concern. Because whether it's sunflower seeds on the field or certain types of chairs or cleats or whatever it may be, I think that's really, in my mind, that would be my concern. And then if and when something happens to it by, say it was open from 9 to 11 and we find out that, someone ruined it or they stuck a stake in it or whatever it may be, like, how do we go about it from that standpoint? So I don't know, just my 2 cents on it, but I agree with you both. I think it needs to be open to the community and not only, reserved in high school and community, other community sports programs, but just everyone in general. So.
It would be interesting to find other, like you spoke about Stonington. It just seems like we're an oddity with the amount of crossover we have. I know this helps a lot of it, but we would also need some Board of Ed type of like rules and like that exact stuff, right? So
Right.
is it okay to, so I think about the second field at New London High School. And I know that my son-in-law and my grandson and 30 other people show up Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. and play on that secondary field, the one that's just the turf, right? It's their second field.
Yep.
And there's a gate, and I think there's a gate the last time I went there. Maybe not even a gate, but it's blocked off. Like you can't drive. I mean, you got to walk up to it, but it's accessible. And they know no one uses it in the morning on Sundays in general, so they're pretty much there all summer long. And again, right, so you don't know about what you just talked about, right? I mean, is it just a matter of common sense? But then, yeah, so I think it's a learning experience for us as a town, to be able to understand that there's things you can and cannot do, and respect from the people. And you would think that people pop over here and again, like years and years and years ago, I remember Jerry Loken and stopping my son, and not stopping him, but talking to my son as the captain of the soccer team at Pawanic Plains. It's just, hey, make sure you don't do this, this, and this, just that kind of thing. And I'm not trying to say that's what we need to do, but it certainly is a learning experience for both the town, the Board of Ed, the Groton Parks and Rec, and also the people, obviously. But I think it's a big selling point to be able to let them know they can use these facilities.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and I think part of it too is, like I'm sure we'll have cameras on the facilities too. And if something happens, maybe we can kind of pinpoint it and figure out who it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
But, kind of like what we've done with our tennis courts sometimes, someone broke the net. I had to lock it up until we got it fixed. I saw a guy on it 2 days ago with his dog playing catch. I'm like, sir, this is not for animals. You're scratching the surface with the dog's claw, like stuff like that. So it's educating the community on it, I think, and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then, knowing that, maybe we have a central point where people can look and see whether it's on the Parks and Rec website or Parks and Rec in the high school website, whatever, that this is the availability, or this is the times it's being used. I think with the turf field that we have now, we're slow. I would say slowly, but we're trying to, like, I know Groton Soccer Club's now using it. GM LA Lacrosse has used it. So we're slowly starting to, I guess, open that up more. But I do agree. I think it's the design of that facility which kind of handcuffs the usage on it and the way it's set up. You have to have a key to get on it. I don't think it was made in the mind of, community use. I think because I wasn't here when it happened, but at least in my mind, it was made for a specific reason. And then that was kind of, it wasn't really looked at beyond that scope. So, but again, like those are things we can talk about and, figure out how to best utilize it and make sure that everybody's getting their fair share and,
Right.
and that type of stuff.
But Mark, right now, those tennis courts, for instance, I could walk in there tomorrow at 10 a.m. and walk in. I could use those courts.
Yep. Yes.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's awesome. Okay. Good.
And
So
Mark,
we have that ability.
Same thing with the track right now too, right? Like that's not always locked. Is that correct?
Right. No, the track's one that there's a gate on it. I don't know if it was missing a gate or whatever it may be, but people can go on it at any point. To utilize it, whether it's in the morning. Obviously during school time you can't, but
Right.
people still do it anyway. But yeah, and honestly, like the same thing with like our baseball field. I get on there's people on it, kids having a pass, or I see father son taking BP or whatever it may be. So I've also seen the grass field at the middle school where people, are going on it, guys chipping a putting wedge or whatever, playing golf on it. You ask in the movie, you ask why when there's a game going on, but that's a different story. But I mean, honestly, most of the facilities are wide open. Softball field, same thing. So, I think it like I said, the design of that turf field that we currently have there, I don't know. I don't think it was looked at beyond the scope, and and I don't think people really thought about the amount of usage that thing would get and the need for it. And I think people are really starting to see it now.
Yeah. What I'll just add real quick, what we've seen other towns do is that from a public use perspective of the fields, you can either program it, so it's just kind of maybe how New London does it, is say, hey, every Sunday or even Saturday, Sunday morning from this time to this time, it's kind of almost like open pool, like for a pool, right? It's open field and the public can come in and kind of use it. And then it starts getting programmed at a certain time, on those days. There is software available out there that can integrate between Park and Rec and Fitch Athletics to try to do some field reservations. Whether or not that is truly ready to be able to be visible by the public, I haven't seen that one yet, right? But I think that is also coming where you could be able to do all of those reservations, on, or at least make them visible online so that you guys can coordinate who's got what when, and then the public would be able to potentially see what might be available on a given day, so that before just driving down there to see if somebody's on the baseball field, before having a catch, they could at least know that there's no scheduled activities before they go.
Right.
And like I said, I know that's like the next level, but I think it's just knowing that, telling the public that we understand that that's part of the deal. Like if you were to put one of those two fields at Claude Chester and make it one of the two, the bigger ones, make it a turf field, I could see like a trainload of usage, right? Because people will see it there, it's on the road, and it would become a very vocal, it would be very, I mean, both of them. I mean, Pequannock Plains is like that now, right? I mean, we know it's wonderful. And I mean, I know that Mark will tell you that they have more incidents than we need to know about damage, which is just absolutely mind-boggling in my head, but it bothers me. But you're going to want to be able to use those fields. I mean, I just think the general public is want to be able to go to Claude Chester and use any one of those three of those fields on Sunday from 8 to 12 because, in the summer, because they're not going to be being used. But I wouldn't turf all of it because I think another selling point with what we put in the quad there in the middle, to use one to be able to use it as I'll call it an amphitheater for lack of a better word, to do something like that where you could go and do a concert and people could sit out on the grass, and you can't, you don't want, you would, again, I was at Stonington High School this weekend with my grandson, and they were trying to keep the people putting their little chairs that we all bring off of the turf and keep it, kind of on so they had the field set up so you were in the end zones and on the other side. And yeah, you were an extra 15 yards away from the sideline, which is where we all want to be. But, use your common sense. They don't really want you there, right? I mean, it made no sense. But it was doable. You just have to kind of teach people. But again, you can't make everything turf, because I think you need it for other reasons. But anyway, okay, good.
All right, so with that, I'll run through all the document type stuff now too. So this is let's see here. So this is the one pager sheet that's kind of summarizes everything, and I've zoomed in quite a bit. So first, what I thought would be interesting to, at least for you guys to be able to see, is we've developed a historic and proposed athletic field supply chart, right? So for each type, and since we've now been doing this for 10 years, we have a 2014 quantity, a 2024 quantity, and then what the proposed plan is if we did the full build out of the 3 sites that we've been talking about, and what that means overall, right? And so for baseball, basically in 2014, we had the equivalent of 1 field. By 2024,
Chad, I apologize. Is it just my phone that's not working? I don't see anything being shared. Does anyone else see those documents? It's just my phone.
Yeah, I can see them.
Shared.
Yeah, you can all see.
Okay. Apologies, and it's just me. It's not coming through. I will see what I can do. Thanks.
All right, Jim. So this first column is the 90-foot baseball, effectively the high school baseball and the older kids baseball. You can see we had the equivalent of 1. By this year, we've added the condition of a couple is better, right? So we got rid of ones at what was the middle school and at Cutler, but we added one back there and it's slightly better condition. So we had a little bit more field. And then this year with the proposed, as we add a full baseball field at Sutton Park, that's what bumps our numbers up. 60-foot baseball, we kind of have the inverse happening a little bit. 2014, we were a little over 3.5. Currently right now, we're up to about the equivalent of 4. But as we lose one of those fields at Sutton Park to make way for the other fields, we're now going to be down to 3 fields. We have more than that, but it's the equivalent of 3 fields from a usability perspective. 90-foot softball is men's softball. Again, this is at Sutton Park. So from 14 to 20, well, at Sutton Park and Washington Park is the combination to get those. Nothing changed from 2014 to 24. Proposed as that 90-foot field turns into a baseball field to gain over here, we're losing it over here. Softball, no significant change between 2014 and 24. This is kind of interesting, right? Because we built new fields, like we had the field at the middle school as a brand new field. And we've upgraded and tweaked some of the fields like at the community center, but we also lost some fields, but it stayed effectively flat from a fields perspective. As we add the softball field down at Sutton Park, will increase by 1. High school, this is basically the main football field. We noted that the condition of that field has continued to deteriorate, so the use of that field has continued to go down. So we actually have lost some usability of that field in the last decade. As we turn that field into a synthetic multi-use field, we get significantly more use out of it. We're back up again. Youth football, this is effectively that 3rd field at Aquatic Plains. So it's, hasn't really changed much in the 10 years and there's no change to it now. I'll note from a football perspective, I know they're nervous because in the past we'd only been showing soccer as the field lines on Clodchester, which is why we added some additional. So this only equates to what they use at Aquatic Plains. The other 2 at Clodchester are kind of wrapped into the multi-use fields over here. We then have the youth size multi-use fields. You can see that from 2014 to 2024, we had a slight increase throughout the town, and then we increased again because of that smaller youth field in Clodchester. And then in the multi-use field full size, we go from 2014 of having about 3.5 up to about 5 now. And again, most of that comes from the new multi-use field that's turf up at the middle school. And then as we look at adding the 2 fields plus some renovations, we get up to the equivalent of just over 7 multi-use fields. So what we want to do is look and say, how does that meet the supply and demand? So this is the current supply and demand across all the different field types. And I'm going to note that we found an error after I emailed this out today. The demand, so the demand is the crosshatch in all of these, and the supply is the solid color in the background. The 90-foot, the demand here for baseball is shown a little bit higher than it should, because we ended up having some of the men's softball that plays in 90 feet in the data that got translated into a baseball field. So this shouldn't be quite so high, and actually this field, which is the 90-foot softball for men, should be a slightly higher. But this is how it equates. So the demand right now is obviously more than what we have from a supply side for full-size baseball. The youth baseball, the demand just slightly exceeds currently what we have. The men's softball would be greater than that, but we have a greater demand than we have existing. Youth and high school softball, it looks like we have greater supply than the current demand. This is a bit of an anomaly from the data, just because we have quite a few smaller fields throughout town that are available for play, but we don't have them available when we need them, like right after school and things like that for the softball teams. High schools, the football field, as we've talked about, we need more than we've got. Youth football, we need slightly more than we've got. The mid-size youth field, we're actually meeting demand, and then our regulation full-size multi-use field, we need a couple additionals. So then when we go and factor in the proposed facilities that we're talking about building in this plan, this is how that factors into getting closer to meeting the needs. So, I'll pan back and forth a little bit. Again, we had a greater, not as much supply. We have a greater supply of the 90-foot baseball. This demand comes down a little bit again because the data incorrect with the men's league counting into that. But there's still going to be a slight deficit in 90-foot baseball. 60-foot baseball, youth size baseball, we have a greater deficit than we currently do. Again, because of that one loss of field at Sutton. 90-foot softball, we have a greater reduction, in what's available, again, because of that loss at Sutton. 60-foot softball, we're showing a larger surplus. Again, based on all the discussions we've had about the actual teams and where they play and when they need to be scheduled, this is a bit of just a data anomaly.
Excuse me, Chad, for 1 second. The softball
Yep.
there.
Yep.
What do you consider the new middle school field? Because the high school doesn't really use it, right? Even though it's 60-foot bases.
We count it for the high school. Anything that's a 60. So this is all softball, basically, right? Youth, high school, everything. Yeah. So that's why the demand should be shown higher than what it's currently shown, just because of the way that the data works out. So then the high school, the football field, again, we can now, the supply will slightly exceed the demand. Youth football, nothing changes except to get access to the regulation multi-use fields that are in better condition. The youth mid-sized field, because we get that one extra field, we now have a little bit of a surplus. And then the multi-use fields, we actually can meet the demand very, very closely with the supply if we do the full build out. So to show you a little bit of the backup of that data, that's why I provided these other 2 files. Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to check one thing. Is Washington Park considered as part of the softball fields right now in the 60-foot? Because that's where I feel like that's an anomaly. Like, to your point about anomalies of data, I feel like that should be excluded because that's not a softball field for girls. So just as we're thinking about how this is showing, and again, and back to your point about anomalies, I think I would argue that we want to pull that out of the information because of the fact that we're basically force fitting a men's field into a women's softball field.
Okay, so that's like these next two pages of data is probably where we can look at that very specifically and edit this, and that'll affect it going back into that graph, right? So this is what we considered for the current existing. So these were the totals from 2014. These are the totals from 24 for all the different field types. I'll note that in here we had broke it out a little bit more where we had like 90-foot lighted and unlighted. We've combined those in the other data to just 90-foot baseball. So there's a little bit more breakout here than there is in the summaries. The changes I'll note here, the community center, we actually kind of have one more field here than what we had previously. And we've updated some of the availability of those fields. We have the one new field that was built there within the last year. Conditional assessment on that is not quite perfect just because it's slightly undersized and we don't have some of the field amenities around it that we'd like to have in normal conditions. But the use assessment's one. And I'll note the other fields, the U8 rectangle and the softball and little league fields. Again, conditions dependent on that particular field. And then the use there we knocked down a little bit because those fields all overlap with another field. So it's hard to, you can't use any one, or you can't use all of them at the exact same time. So those were some updated numbers from the community center. Otherwise, Farquhar, Burroughs, Spicer Library, all that stayed effectively the same from when we've been doing this. At Fitch, again, this is existing conditions, right? So we have the one football field, we have the one baseball field, and then the regulation rectangle, the multi-use field that was where the middle school is gone. So that's been zeroed out. We now have the middle school. So we have the synthetic turf, we have the 60-foot softball field, and we have the practice field in between, and how those all add in. Mystic River Magnet, we have the 90-foot baseball field, and then we have a rectangle as well. And then Thames River Magnet, we've got a 60-foot softball and a small sized multi-use field. And the uses and all those things are scaled based on their availability due to school. And then Claude Chester, that's what's there currently, no changes. I'll note that we did zero out Grosso Tech. So this was done before Grosso had obviously built their new fields. There was some use of their fields previously, a little bit. It was very minor, but we've zeroed it out now that it's been very difficult for anybody in Groton to be able to get regular use of those fields. So we've just taken it off. Likewise, the 2-ball fields at the YMCA and Stonington have gone offline, as well as at one point we were counting the rural school had a rectangle there, and that has also gone offline. And then Jim, to your point, so Washington Park, we right now have it listed as the 190-foot lighted field for baseball, a 90-foot men's softball, 2 little leagues for baseball, and 1 softball. So if that softball field isn't really there, then we should probably, that should be one of those edits. So those were the change. Everything in the red boxes were things that got changed basically from as we updated to the 2024 existing facilities. When we go and then add in the proposed facilities, so now we've taken everything that was in that last one, integrated it in, and now the new red boxes are changes to the current fields, right? So Sutton Park is now changed to have the 60-foot skinned high school softball and then the high school baseball. Claude Chester is now showing, the 1 U10 multi-use field and 2 regulation multi-use fields. And I'll note here, I've included those as a conditional assessment of 1 and the use of 1. So that means that that's a natural turf field, that's available to the public at all times, which is different than at the football, at the high school. Now we take what we're still calling the lighted football, but it's really now the, multi-use championship field. And as it goes with turf and with lights, we get a lot more use out of it. However, because it's on the campus and things like that, has school associated with it, the use time is slightly less available. The baseball, nothing changed. The secondary practice field, again, 1.5 from the youth score. And then the new softball field, again, of 1 score and a 0.75 from a availability perspective. And then nothing changes with all the rest of the properties going down. So those are what totals up to kind of our totals over here. And then that all feeds back into that, these overall graphs, so that we just wanted you to be able to see kind of what's the trend over the years for each field type, and then our current supply demand, and then the proposed. So I guess what I would say is for all of you that are familiar with the different fields, we should look through here and make sure that everything's identified correctly. If you think there's a field that has either changed, got less usable, is now offline, isn't available anymore, we should get those edits in there so that we can properly get it back into the charts. It's a lot of kind of minute data, but any other questions or issues you guys can see right away?
Chad, this is what you're planning on being part of the presentation on the 26th, 28th, whatever.
Yeah, we will try to make it a little bit, easier for the public to understand. So I don't necessarily plan on going through this level of detail. Like, here's every single, we might put it up on the screen briefly, but not spend a lot of time on it, just to basically say we have, there's data that supports everything. But then, yes, this is what we really plan to kind of show to help, be able to say we're now, for most fields now, we're able to meet the demand. We understand there's still going to be, we're increasing the availability of baseball, but we understand that with this current plan, the way we're proposing it, we're still not able to meet the full demand of Little League or full-size baseball yet.
Chad, I got a question about softball. With the 90-foot softball, or it's 60, you're including Farquhar in that too, along with, you said,
Yeah.
Washington Park. Okay.
Yeah.
And the middle school one, right?
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
we've got the 60-foot fields. We've got one at the community center. And again, this one, it's, there's one there, there's one at Farquhar, there's one at the middle school, there's one at Thames River, there's one at SB Butler. And again, not a great field, doesn't get a great score, but there's something there. There's Washington Park, we're still counting one. The Old Mystic Baptist Church, this might be one that actually should probably go away.
Oh, the one in the back there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we should check with softball just to see if they're still using it. It was not much for condition, so that might be one that needs to actually get zeroed out. But it's interesting, right? There's several of those fields kind of throughout town. Most of them are not in very good condition, but when you get a whole bunch of them that are all like in not great condition, it makes it look like we have more than we really do that we use probably.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. All right. Any other questions on the data? What I'd say is I'd welcome everybody to kind of dig into it, pay attention to the fields that you're familiar with, and feel free to, edit and make suggestions or comments. And then we can get those incorporated over the next couple of weeks and update, this to make sure that we are meeting the needs that we think we are.
It's interesting. The gentleman who spoke to us a couple meetings ago about the possibility of them purchasing or going after some of the property. you think about that, I mean, some of those shortfalls, a men's softball field, for instance,
Yep.
great location for that, right? I mean,
Yep.
you know, our kind of mantra going forward is about keeping everything kind of tight knit within that facility, within those three facilities, the high school, Sutton Park, and Gloucester, and they get kind of the bump out. But oh my gosh, something like that is just would be perfect landing spot, because I'm thinking in my head, okay, so what do you do with the shortfalls, right?
Right.
And something like that would work. I mean, it's exactly what they want, right? So
Effectively, I mean, if again, once we'll edit this to change this a little bit, but there's probably, at least two full-size baseball and 1.5 to 2 little league fields. So,
Right.
that's pretty easy if you look at what baseball loves to do, the clover design, right? You
Sure.
could definitely do a clover with 2 full, 2 half, and or some combination of that in that
Yeah,
property.
yeah, absolutely.
And the problem we have is, this leftover space isn't big enough we could get a little field from like a little league perspective, as we've seen in the past, but it gets really tight. And obviously we don't have, there's no room left in the inn at Fitch. And then down at Sutton, even if we were to say, okay, we have a lot of softball, right? If we were to take that stance, there's no way to fit a second full-size baseball
Right,
down here.
right.
And from a usability perspective, as we've talked about, to have the ability to have 3 of those softball fields, a full, one for the middle school and 2 that supply the high school. So you can have JV and varsity practicing, and middle school can be practicing, which is the same thing then that happens here with baseball. Then you're not busing anybody across town to go to Washington Park or Farquhar or anywhere else. So,
Right.
that makes sense. And the fact that we can't fit a second full-size field in there, it's a good use of that space.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? Danny, go ahead. You're here.
Yeah, I apologize. My phone died and I was trying to log in from my car before I got home, and I had to wait till I got home to log in because my phone died.
Welcome.
But just want to let you know here, and I see that you don't have a quorum anyway. So I don't know if you're voting.
As I said at the very beginning, from my opinion, I don't need anything necessarily voted on and approved. I'm really looking for input. And so, happily take any input tonight if you want things changed graphically, if you don't like something, if we need to show something to pick something better, change something. And then the data, if you guys could all double check it and look through it and provide any recommendations. We're looking for input both tonight and then via email or phone over the next couple of weeks to get ready for the public presentation.
Okay, I'll make sure I email you.
So talking about the meeting, Mark, are you going to try to send stuff out to your head coaches about attendance and or just knowledge thereof?
Yes, I was going to
Perfect.
put an email together when I get back from vacation and get it out and encourage all of the presidents of Little League and soccer and all of those groups to try to get the word out about the meeting in September.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, and I have it listed as September 26th. So 5 weeks from tonight.
That's gonna be the face-to-face, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be at Thrive 55,
Yep,
formerly the
I've been
Groton
there.
Senior Center. Yep.
Yep, yeah, I've been there for meetings.
6 o'clock.
And I'll do the same. We had a booster club meeting. Was it Monday night?
Yeah,
And
Monday.
I know there's probably about 20 people there. They all are in a huge support of this, so I'm sure we'll have a good turnout.
Hey, Mark, if I could just remind you, is the band too, because I think they can
Yep.
be it can really upgrade their program as they talked about a couple years ago with the things that they can do to have
Yeah,
that big
definitely.
facility with the and anyone else who might use it. I don't know outside the athletic fields and the band who else might up at the high school, but I think that's most of them.
Good idea, Frank. If they bring the symbols, every time we say something good, they could just slap them together.
Perfect.
Maybe we need to have the drum line, come
Yeah.
marching in for us. That'd be great.
Frank, you can arrange that.
Yeah, we can do that. No, my guy's gone.
Oh,
He lives next door. He's moved on. His son's remember Larry, his son is now he'll be I think a sophomore this year. Sophomore at UConn. So he's anyway.
Yeah, Larry's been out for like 2 years now, I think.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
son is a sophomore this year.
He did a great job.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, the more word that we can get out amongst those, I know that I've limited usage, but to the soccer community that I speak to about it, and I tell them all the time. And now that I'll be a thriving member of Thrive 55, I gotta get them in.
you could join the pickleball group there.
Oh, don't
Awesome.
go down that rabbit hole.
Hey, we are going to have a pickleball tournament fundraiser for Fitch High School on October 12th. Everyone on this call is invited.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
Can I invite my son and his fiance? What's the date?
Yes, yes. Any donation is greatly appreciated. So invite them.
What's the date?
Saturday, October 12th.
Oh, that's a bad day for me. My son's getting married that day.
Oh,
I'm out.
oh
I'm
my
out.
God.
Dang it.
It's only 10 to 2.
I'm out. All right. So moving forward, Chad, you're good, right? I think that was
Yep.
everything that I read.
That's everything I've got. Just looking for the feedback. Like I said, the next couple of weeks would be great,
Okay.
and then we'll get it incorporated. Get a presentation put together, get that emailed to all of you in advance so you can preview it a little bit, and then we'll be ready to go on the 26th.
All right. So we will have no scheduled meeting. We will not have a meeting on the 19th. We will not meet, but we are meeting. The meeting with the public is the 26th at Thrive 55.
The only question I have is how far in advance do we want to start blasting that information out to the people, whoever we want to attend or people in general? We want to start, do we have a goal like September 1 or is it a little further in?
We're
2 weeks
working on,
before?
sorry, Mark.
No,
We're
that's
working
okay. Go ahead.
on lawn signs. I think
Oh, wow.
20 of them, both in English and in Spanish. And I think they'll be ready by the end of next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, if you haven't already, Mark Romano, do you have I won't call it a meet and greet because you know all of them, but an athletic director, head coach, everybody gets together kind of thing in the fall?
Yeah, we already had it a couple weeks
Okay.
ago.
Okay.
But, Mark, I'm trying to think if we want to order more of those signage, I can always help pay for some of it as well.
Yeah, actually, we're still waiting for the translation to Spanish. And we can bump that up to, well, how many do you think you'd want at the high school?
Well, I'm thinking
And
between the
middle
high
school?
school, all the elementary schools, like I think
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a
I
good
think we
point.
just, bombard everything with it.
Yeah, so there's a price point at 50, if we wanted to jump up 30 more.
It's probably not a bad idea,
Okay, all right.
and then we can, kind of strategically put them around, I guess.
Sure.
You know, we would have to ask what local businesses if we were able to put a sign out in front of their facility. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, if you're putting it in somebody's private yard, you should
Yep.
definitely ask permission.
Okay.
Oh, we can
Yeah,
put
I
one in
think-
my yard. And I am like Grand Central Station here. I am like down the hill from Walmart, maybe. They, yeah. Someone can drop one at mine. It's 60 Kings, Mark.
Got it. Yeah, no, so I think what we could do is, know a lot of different, like, for example, Domino's, they got 2 locations in town. We put one on each one. I'm sure that won't be a problem. And that hits 184 and it hits, whatchamacallit there,
Route 1.
yeah, yep, well, yeah, he's down. Yep, your Route 1, you're right.
Yeah, just
So, and then others as well, maybe the fire department, I don't know, which is up there. So just thinking of different locations, I think 50 would be great. And then we just,
Sure.
I can get like a part of my booster club committee together and have them go out and, if you give me 20 and you take 20 or something like that, like we can get them spread out or whatever you want to do. Or
Okay.
30 and 20, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
Does anyone need the Board of Ed concurrence to put them at a school? I'm asking. I don't know.
I mean, I'll ask the superintendent.
Okay.
But I
Perfect.
mean, she'll probably have to ask the board, I would think, but shouldn't be a problem, I don't think. I would hope.
But along those lines, and I'm trying to see, I don't see, Ian's not on tonight, but, we might want to reach out to Ian and just make sure he's up to speed with any questions and then see if yeah, at least he can report it back to the board, through the liaison to this group, and encourage them to obviously come and be there and make sure that they don't have any issues with what we're proposing on the property that they're in charge of as well.
Mark, do you do minutes for these meetings?
Do I do? Yes.
Do you send it to people like Ian and people like that?
Yeah, everybody on the athletic field task force gets a copy of the minutes.
Okay,
When I
so if he
when-
reads it, he should see it. What
Yeah.
Chad just said.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what I'll do is
Yep.
when Mark sends it, I'll cut and paste exactly that part of it and send it to the board and superintendent and all them. And then
Well,
that way,
yeah, I think the packet that I sent out Tuesday, had the minutes from the 19th, which we didn't approve because we didn't have a quorum in July, and it also had meeting notes from the July meeting.
Right.
So
Yep.
everybody's getting those.
Good.
Yep.
And I use that same distribution list to send out what I sent out today.
Yeah.
Mark, do you need, I know we helped with the lawn sign, do we want like a smaller flyer that goes out via email, or do you just want to take the data that's on that sign and that just it's into text of an email? Like, do we need to have anything smaller that's either, Facebook friendly or,
Yeah, that'd be terrific, Chad.
okay,
Yeah, Facebook,
Facebook
Instagram.
friendly, then the Booster Club would definitely post it on their Facebook page too.
perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then the last thing, I'll just double check. So when we talked last time, we agreed that the public presentation, we're gonna basically be presenting the field turf stuff, so all the different field types and concerns and things like that. And then presenting basically the plans that we've gotten to today with the demand analysis. And then look for feedback and comment, from them, right? And so, but the one thing we weren't gonna go over was cost or anything like that, to have we like this for this much money versus that for more or less. I just want to confirm that we're not talking cost stuff at that public meeting.
My only question would be, it's not cost related for the project, but the argument that is made between turf and natural comes down to, I think the bottom line when it was all said and done was usage. Would you have dollars per hour or something in that
We came up
sense?
with, yeah, dollars per hour, and you get more, it's, more use for the dollar with synthetic, even though it costs you more money.
Right. So that's like a general spend. At the
Right.
bottom line, A versus B, these are all the things, but in the bottom, this
Right.
is your dollars are being more well spent this way, or not more. This is what the numbers say.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yep. Yeah, that'll all still be presented. It's just,
Right.
I didn't want to get into the, is this a 5, 10, 15, $100 million
Right.
project,
Right,
right? Like
right,
we're
right.
not trying to get, we will get there, but we're not there yet.
Agreed. Agreed. Totally. Yeah. All right. Anybody got anything else?
Frank, can we approve the minutes from the 19th? Just so I can kind of close that. This is June 19th. They were
Oh,
in the packet.
oh,
Because we
absolutely.
didn't have a quorum in July, so we need to approve the June minutes. And then I just submitted notes, which don't need approval for the July meeting.
But do we still have a quorum to vote?
Well, unless we've lost Jim.
I think we lost Jim.
Oh, we did.
I
Okay.
think yeah, I think he was gone before
Oh, no,
Danny.
he's got his hand up.
Oh, does he? I'm
So,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? He's in the attendees and not in as a panelist.
That's it.
He might have to
Oh.
be switched over. He might have rejoined and
Oh, gotcha. Thanks, Chad. Okay.
Jim is here. Perfect. So then, yes.
Promote to panelist. Okay.
So we
Here
need.
he is.
Yep.
Sorry,
Hi,
Jim,
friend.
you are
Sorry.
there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I've been listening in, but yeah, my connection dropped, and when I rejoined, it didn't put me as a panelist.
You're-
So I've been listening and biding my time, and I figured I would raise my hand and hopefully get your attention as
Yeah.
needed. So that seemed to have
Hey.
worked, which worked out well.
Thanks for sticking with us.
You can vote.
Okay,
Yes.
so a vote to approve the minutes from June
June 19th.
19th.
Yeah.
All of you have received that. So sorry, I got lost for a second.
If you're making the motion, I'll second.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 19th meeting. Danny Lee has second. Any discussion? Okay, none. So all in favor, say aye or
Aye.
raise their hand.
Aye.
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 Jim is an aye. 3 voting members, no opposed. So I feel that we've done our due diligence there. And can't we also do July?
He said he didn't have to.
Yeah, because it wasn't an official meeting.
Got it.
So I just
Yep,
I just
understood.
submitted notes, and
Okay.
I don't think notes need to be approved.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. All right, so we will not meet as a team, as a task force in September, but the next time we'll be together will be the 26th of September.
Face to face.
In person at Thrive 55, I think typically at 7. Do you remember, Mark?
No, it's 6 o'clock.
I think
6?
it's 6. Yeah.
6?
6
Okay,
o'clock. Don't
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
an hour
And that
early.
actually, if we have 3 out of the 4 members attend, that counts as a meeting.
Got it.
So I'll work with the assistant to the town manager to get that all set up, because we don't want someone pointing fingers and say we didn't have a posted public meeting. when we were all there. So,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
You just have to basically make it a special meeting, right? Cancel the
Yes.
regular, make it a special meeting.
Right. Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. Great job, and we'll hopefully see everybody there on the 26th. Bring all your family and friends, and I can't wait for the sign in front of my house.
Thanks,
You want
everyone.
the
Sounds
English or the Spanish
Great night.
version?
I would prefer the English version because the other one I will not understand.
Okay.
good. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
All
Have a
right.
great night.
Good
See
night.
you guys.
Bye now.
Bye. Thanks for hanging